Hello and welcome to another episode of Allo and Ace podcast. I am the Allosexual Skylar.
And I'm the asexual Jessie. Why are you smiling like that?
Why are you smiling
You're
like
smiling
that?
like that.
I don't know.
Okay.
Let's do something different.
Okay.
Disclaimers.
Oh, okay.
This is a sexuality-based podcast, specifically and most commonly around asexuality. It can include discussions of sex and self-harm and possibly SA. So just be mindful of that. If you want to check the show notes ahead of time, I will put what we discuss after we record it and as I upload it, just so you are aware.
Yes. And a friendly reminder that Skylar and I are not professionals. We are speaking off of opinion and experiences from what we've gone through or what we have observed. So if you need to find a professional, please do so. And also watch for your mental health while listening.
We are on most socials, and we would love to have you reach out to us. You can also email us at alloandacepodcast@gmail.com if you so choose. And I think that's it.
You just wanted to get that right out the gate.
So Jessie.
Yeah.
How are you?
I feel really pumped up. I know. We're not used to me saying that, but I think most of you know by this point that I do have therapy on Mondays, and I just got done with my therapy session a little bit ago, and it meant a lot to me. It was a really great session, and I think I've learned that when I think out loud and just kind of talk out everything, that's when things start moving and insights happen. And like, sometimes they're really hard insights, right? But today they weren't hard. They were awesome. So I'm coming off of that, and I'm feeling really good about it. What about you? How are you?
Today just seemed like the Monday of all Mondays.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we are ending the day.
The work day?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's still some stuff that we will be doing, but I'm glad that the work day Monday is done.
As far as careers go.
Yeah. But other than that, I don't really have anything to complain about.
You're feeling quite calm.
Quite calm. The waters are calm.
The waters are calm. That's exactly what I was going to say, actually. That's good. I can tell you feel calm.
Yeah, I think we had a good weekend. It was a productive weekend. We did a Insta Live, which is available to watch if you so choose. We had friends over for dinner.
And we talked about aliens and UFOs. And we even went outside and we looked up in the dark sky to try to spot some UFOs. And it was so fun. It was just like wonder. Like I was in such wonder, like maybe.
Yeah, I've been big on watching the Skinwalker Ranch series and all of that. So
yeah, I might relay this back to something that happened in therapy. But yeah, are we ready to dive into the asexual moments of the week?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So
do we need a theme?
Oh, like a little music intro?
Asexual moments of the week.
Next episode, you guys are going to hear the cheesiest, corniest little intro for that.
Probably not. We're not that high tech.
Oh, come on.
We like to record these and get them uploaded. So to have to insert music and stuff, that's probably not happening.
I know.
Unless you or I just sing it like I just did, which I apologize.
Beautiful. Well, anyway, I think this is an important little segment in the podcast now. So I'm happy to discuss. And there just so happened to be a couple of things, but mainly one thing. So on Saturday, before we hung out with our super cool friends, talking about UFOs and aliens, about an hour before they came over, I had a really big triggering moment. And this time it was different because I felt like I could logically understand what was going on. Like it didn't take me that long to recognize that I was triggered. And I was triggered by something so small, and it came out of nowhere. So like a couple hours before this happened, Skylar had whispered into my ear something completely non-sexual. Like it could have been Sloppy Joe's for all I know. I can't remember.
Sloppy Joe's.
Yeah. See, and I feel like you're in my ear right now doing it. And I had this uncomfortable feeling with it when it happened, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I just felt a little bit of like So then a couple hours later, when he did it again, but he kind of nuzzled his nose into my neck after saying whatever non-sexual thing he said. He wasn't trying to be sexual, but his voice sounded like really Sloppy Joe's. Like it was just like...
It was very soothing.
It was very serious. I don't even know.
Serious.
So I instantly felt like a cat on all fours with like my hair sticking up and like, stop it. And I pushed him away a bit, right?
I think so. I think it was, you didn't like push me away.
No, but I was like, stop.
You're like, ah.
Yeah, yeah. But I had definitely a more physical reaction to what happened, and I could feel it so much more clearly that second time it happened. And so I realized that I really don't like that. Like that sexy sounding talk in my ear, even if it's not something sexy being said. It feels really uncomfortable for me, really unnatural, and just don't do it, So I did say like, oh, what's that? Or something, but I felt my mood shift so much because of this trigger. And so within maybe 10 minutes, I looked at him and I said, hey, I'm feeling really uncomfortable with this thing that happened, and I just want to speak it out. And so I told him, and, he was like, okay, that's fine, of course. But I spiraled after that in my own head. I felt really bad. I had a lot of negative talk in my own head where I was thinking, Jesus Christ, excuse my language.
Our Lord and Savior.
Why do you have to take things so serious? Like, this is so stupid. It's just a little thing. He wasn't trying to be sexual. Why are you such a prude? These kinds of thoughts kind of rattled my brain for the next 45 minutes or so, and I was feeling pretty bad about it. But I came through it, and it calmed down. And like I said, we had our super cool friends come over about an hour later, and this particular friend does listen. Well, one half of these cool friends listens to the podcast like regularly. And so he knows that we start off by saying, how are you? And I say something like decent or interesting, and then we go into it. And so when he came in, he said, how are you? Interesting? Decent? And I was like, honestly, I just had a trigger that happened about an hour ago, and I'm kind of processing it and coming down from it. And I was just so honest with them. And, just to add a little bit more here, we've never hung out with them in person together like that for an extended amount of time. I've never been around his spouse, and I've only been around him in short little blips, but I thought, he's asking. So I'm just going to be honest and say this. And at some point, I think any friends that are around us are going to realize if they ask Jesse this, they better be prepared to have a real honest answer, whether it's like, I'm amazing, or like, things are interesting right now. So I opened up, and I was so potently myself in that moment of him asking, and it felt so nice to just be real honest. I practice real honesty with Skylar, and I try to practice as much honesty as I can within the other relationships in my life. But I'm working hard at being just really, truly myself. And that felt like a moment that happened where I decided to be vulnerable.
It is amazing when you can find people that you can be yourself with 100%. And you don't feel like you're having to filter.
Exactly. Well, and the thing is, is if people are close to you in your life, should you really be having to filter? Like, I get not like saying really terrible things, right? But I'm saying just being so much yourself. That's the way it should be. You should be so much yourself that you trust yourself, really.
I mean, I think that we've seen where someone will say something and then even like a family member will be like, oh, that was more information than I was looking for.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what were you expecting?
Right. You asked. So, yeah. So that moment happened. And it was interesting to kind of dissect and have. It was cool to see that I feel like I'm progressing with triggers, with this situation, with this stuff. Don't you think?
I think the audience we've tried recording this section like 5 times now.
I don't even know what you're laughing at.
The audience probably wants to know how you do it where you're wearing headphones listening to my voice for an hour in a podcast.
Oh,
because my voice is so soothing and sexy.
Yeah, but what you did on Saturday was like sloppy joes.
Sloppy.
Okay, we don't need to have you do it some more.
No, all joking aside, like I understand that was a trigger and I acknowledged. And even though there was zero part of me that was actually trying to be sexy in that moment, that doesn't take away her feeling a certain way with it and it being a trigger.
Wait. Are there ever any moments that you're trying to be sexy with me?
Never anymore.
Are you trying?
I come out of the shower with my towel up to my armpits now.
Up to your armpits?
You know, like women tend to.
Oh, there's no sexiness going on
there
here.
There is zero.
Yeah, but do you actively try to be cute?
I don't know that I try to be anything. I just try to be myself. But there's zero part of me that's trying to be sexy in any way.
Right.
With anything.
Because, well, then that seems like it's kind of getting, right?
Well,
if you're trying to be sexy with me?
If I'm trying to be sexy in a way to make you acknowledge it or feel a certain way, sure. But I don't think there's any harm in me trying to be sexy for myself.
Oh no, get your groove on, baby.
And so yeah, but I'm not trying to do anything to like make you feel a certain way or think a certain thing or anything like that.
That's something that got brought up in therapy a little bit where she said, how does your relationship feel with Skylar? Like, what does that look like for you right now? What does that feel like? And I said, it feels amazing. I have literally felt zero pressure for 11 months straight in any sexual way from my partner. That is crazy to me. That is like
unheard of.
Unheard of. It's like a dream. It's like crazy to me. But then again, I think about your perspective on that. You've gone 11 months with such a different mindset. How does that make you feel? How do you feel about us? I feel like it's a dream that I don't have those pressures. But do you have pressures to be a certain way?
Can you restate that? Do you mean, do I feel pressures to not be sexy or sexual? Is that what you're trying to ask?
To not be sexual, yeah. Yeah.
No. I don't feel like I'm having to check myself to not do something or be something. I think that it's such a natural progression in our relationship with you coming to terms with your asexuality that I'm not feeling any certain way of like, oh, I really wanted to do that, but I guess I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. But I feel real solid.
I think if anything, if I had to pinpoint any situation where I'm not aside from, but obviously like we've discussed the touching of your body before bed.
Yeah.
And obviously some of that can look very sexual. If someone was watching it, they'd be like, how is that not sexual?
Yeah.
But we've established that there's nothing with that at all. I think where the line could, or where I find myself possibly being like, I need to be careful, I would say is kissing.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, all right, I want to kiss her more passionately, but not sexually.
Yeah. Did you think about that more? Because when we were watching Love Island, I said, those are sex kisses.
No, it's just something that I've thought over the course of months, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Well, because I don't even know if you noticed, but even our kissing has changed.
It has?
Yes.
Oh, do enlighten me.
So before, for instance, when we would kiss more in a kissing way, you
What does that mean?
like not a peck, not a closed mouth, like,
Yeah.
but like an actual like semi make out, but not like making out. You would slip the tongue a bit, pretty much 100% of the time.
See, I feel like you're scared to slip me the tongue.
Because you're not slipping the tongue, which you've done 100% of the time.
I know, but I don't think I'm likely to slip the tongue until you slip the tongue.
Well, here we are. And
Oh my gosh.
This is where communication's important, right? And this is where we are discussing this
Wait.
live.
Yes, but I don't feel like there's been a lack of communication.
There hasn't been a lack. I don't think we've ever broken down kissing, though.
No, we haven't.
But I know, so my mindset or my thought process around it was, she probably doesn't want me to slip the tongue at all because that would come off very sexual and very much without consent.
Well, and our kisses like that tend to be very slow and intentional, and then be like sex kissing to me.
So with that, I'm like, well, consent isn't there, but I also don't necessarily want to ask for consent because I don't want that to become a pressure.
Also, like, can I slip you the tongue?
Yeah, like I
Yeah.
didn't want there to be a consent issue or a pressure issue around it, so I just didn't bring it up.
And you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it and sitting in my feelings with it, honestly, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to explore that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it's such a little thing, really. But is it? I don't know.
And actually thinking back, I think there was an instance where joking around, we were joking around and being like all like, and you're like, that is so gross to me right now. Like that's where before it, I don't think it ever would have been. But now you're like, oh, that kind of grosses me out a little bit thinking about it.
Well, yeah, someone licking all over your face is kind of gross.
And so I think I just took that as like your baseline. Like being like, oh, well, tongue is now that
no.
possible persona.
Now hear me out. Slipping a little tongue is different than licking my face. Okay.
Yeah.
Come on.
No, I know, but I was just trying to be respectful of a possible situation where either one, it would be triggering, two, it would be.
You would rather me bring on the trigger than you bring on the trigger, really.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where it stemmed from, was me not wanting to have you feel pressure or feel bad because you're like, actually, I don't like that. And then you're like, oh, now he's not getting sex, not getting to do this. And now he can't even kiss me how we used to kiss. And
talking through this, I think this is actually a really good indicator that it's probably best for now to keep what we've been doing.
And
because
that's totally fine.
It does feel like a lot, like sitting here talking about it. And not like I'm going to like freak out or anything right now. But guys, listeners, this is exactly like, this is live talking for the first time.
We've never discussed this before.
Never. And so it's just interesting to talk it through with all of you.
And so, yeah,
I don't know if it's helpful, but
so that's where I was like, okay, kissing where it doesn't seem as threatening as sex or oral, but it can really come off as something sexual. I want to make sure that I'm not crossing a boundary. So
a boundary that I don't know.
Yep.
I don't know well enough yet. That makes total sense, and I appreciate that. We got on such a side thing here a bit.
I mean, this whole episode is going to be somewhat like that, which we'll get into the main topic here in a minute. But
yeah,
I think that this is one of the things is like talking about communication, talking about triggers, and what has changed with things that were relatively seemed as a normal interaction or a normal intimacy, where once someone is asexual and they figure out the levels of aversion to different things, because asexuality and being sex favorable or sex, neutral, averse, repulsed, it's not just sex. It's not just the act of intercourse.
No.
It's the
It's
act
way more
of
specific
anything sexual, potentially.
But you know what that plays into? This is perfect, actually, because this got brought up in therapy as well.
Yeah.
That plays into trusting yourself. And I had this huge aha moment in therapy where I said something. I was talking about being able to be in so much curiosity and free thinking and how amazing that was, because when we had our friends over on Saturday, it was like 6 hours of glorious, awesome, curious conversation about some really interesting things like aliens and UFOs. And so what I said to my therapist was, I trust myself enough, or so much so, that I feel safe exploring whatever I want to explore. And that goes the same for this. Like, this is such a big process of figuring out how much you trust yourself, or growing that trust that you have in yourself, to know your boundaries and to feel comfortable stopping when something needs to be stopped, or speaking up when something has made you feel incredibly uncomfortable.
I will say that that's probably a next level that you have to obtain, because right now, some of your sticking up for yourself also causes a spiral.
Yes, it did. Or
feeling bad. So how do you get to the level where you express it
and that's it,
and you don't feel bad for it?
Yeah.
And you know that I know that you're not being a bitch or whatever, or hurting me.
Right.
And
because I expressed it in a really loving way. I wasn't mean or anything. I was assertive, but I wasn't like being mean about it.
And I didn't take it as anything mean. I'm just like, oh yeah, like I could see where I would take it bad is if I was trying to, I don't know, press some boundary or something, and it backfires, and then I go into like my ego and feel bad for it.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah, I wasn't trying to even be sexy. I was trying to be funny, because you know how much I hate secrets. I hate people whispering in my ear.
You do.
And so I'm always like trying to kiss your neck, because it gives you chills, not in a sexual way, but it's like, ugh, like,
well, it's tickly.
It's tickly. So that was my whole thing, was being, trying to be funny. And so I was like, yeah, that's not a problem at all. Like, not even a big deal. I didn't even think anything about it.
Can you imagine though, if you did have an issue with it, like you just felt so bad, or like, get a grip, really? It's not that big of a deal. Like, what would that have looked like? That could have been explosive.
Yeah, I think that it would probably have not been a fun night and next day.
Yeah. How would that have looked with our friends coming over? Do you want to pass the guac?
Yeah. Can you tell her to...
Will you whisper in Skylar's ear sexually to pass the guac, please?
I mean, I probably wouldn't mind it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, yeah, I just... all of this has just been really amazing to talk through. And it's crazy a little bit because
You almost had a Watkins moment right there.
it's crazy because I'm sitting here being so transparent and vulnerable and honest on this podcast that gets sent out everywhere that anybody can listen to. But
Worldwide.
I feel like it's such a safe space though. You know? It's amazing.
Yeah. Do we want to get into the nitty-gritty?
Sure. The nitty-gritty is us dissecting a negative review that we got, but I think it's important to do it.
And now this is the thing. We aren't expecting our podcast to get a bunch of 5-star reviews. And
we're only 5-star reviews.
We know that people are going to be critical and critique it.
And they should.
And I wouldn't have even found this except for there's a page that I look at which gives us different rankings, and it shows where we stand on like different podcast categories and what numbers and things like that. And it's just good to know your audience. And so I saw this review and I'm like, oh, that's weird. I don't remember seeing this when I looked on Apple, but it's because it was from Canada. And so the review is only showing in the Apple Podcast Canada, if you will. So we thought that we would read it live. And this isn't to like throw whoever wrote it under the bus. It doesn't give their name.
It is public, though.
It is public.
And it has like a little username, right?
Yeah. And so we wanted to just read it and clarify, if we could, anything, and then give some opinions about it. So the title says, a little skewed IMO, in my opinion. They seem to have some weird ideas about how most sexual people, and then in brackets, I refuse to use the word allosexual.
This was the first red flag, everybody.
Yeah. So we'll pause right there. So they have weird ideas about how most sexual people view sex, and they don't want to use the word allosexual. So we've discussed this before, I think. We may not have, but the reason why allosexual, the word allosexual exists, is because asexual people can also be sexual. Now, whatever the name came from, however asexuality came about, obviously asexual would lead people to believe non-sexual. But as we've discussed, you can have a sex-favorable asexual, and there's other categories as well, gray sexual, phrasexual, demisexual, etc.
Yeah.
Where they have sex. So calling an asexual person as not sexual is not accurate.
It's not accurate, no.
So them saying that they refuse to use the word allosexual and they will from here on out use the word sexual is already misleading and incorrect.
Right. It tells a big story already without even getting further into it.
So they say, I refuse to use the word allosexual and the way that they view sex, as if most of us assume it's the only way to be intimate and don't realize there are many other ways that are just as important until we become quote unquote enlightened by having a relationship with an asexual person who shows us what love really means and involves. So we'll pause there. So the next part is basically they are saying that we feel that nobody understands intimacy outside of sex until they're with an asexual person and become enlightened to know what a real relationship is like.
Yeah, and they're also saying that of course people recognize all of the ways that you can be intimate. Of course. Yeah.
So they say, I find that attitude rather insulting as a sexual person. There is no hierarchy, and I've never believed there was, and I don't personally closely know any other sexual people who do either.
Which is honestly baffling that this person is saying this. I almost feel like this person could be secretly asexual and they don't know it because they don't think that there's a hierarchy on intimacy and sex.
And before we get to that particular subject, they did give us 2 stars, so they didn't give us 1. And they did say there's some good information and advice on navigating mixed relationships, but as a whole, there seems to be an unbalanced focus on the identity and needs of the asexual partner.
Which is also a little interesting because this podcast is about asexuality and being in a relationship, being in an asexual relationship.
Now, with that said, we have been told by others, either in forums or whatever, that Skylar, even as the allosexual, tends to parrot Jesse, and that they are really only concerned about the needs and feelings of the asexual partner, and don't really discuss the needs of the allosexual partner.
Yeah.
So let's talk about first off, we understand that there are a lot of couples that recognize all forms of intimacy. We've never said nobody knows what intimacy is.
No, we haven't said that, but we do have a good understanding that the majority of people, they aren't focusing on all the ways that you can be intimate. They just, I'm sorry, generally they're not.
And there's actually, there are some websites which they won't even claim sex as intimacy.
Oh, really?
They'll actually have intimacy be its own thing, and then sex is its own thing.
Oh.
But
okay.
I think for the basic understanding, when people say, well, are you and your partner intimate? They're not asking if you're holding hands.
They're asking about sex.
So I think
sure.
I think there could be some general confusion out there, or, misinformation really, of what people understand versus what maybe psychologists and other people, therapists might, recognize as a separation.
I think the general population thinks of, when you say, have you been intimate with them? They mean sex.
And I think it's because people probably, just like you can have sex without love and you can have love without sex. Mm-hmm. I think you can have sex without being intimate. Because if sex is a paid for thing, or if sex is just a one night stand or just a random hookup,
it might not be so intimate.
It doesn't have what someone would call intimacy necessarily.
I guess it depends on what your definition of intimacy is, though. Is that just being vulnerable in a physical way? Is that emotional? Like, what does that actually mean when you break down those parts of it?
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of information there. But with that said, we also aren't saying that you have to be enlightened. I guess what it comes down to, or me as a sexual person, as an allosexual.
I'm so glad that I could enlighten you, Skylar, you allosexual.
What it comes down to for me is, yes, I was fully aware, and Jesse and I were fully aware of all the other forms of intimacy and what that looked like. But
you put sex at the top.
I did, and a lot of the other forms of intimacy were used as a stepping stone.
Yes.
So, and the interesting thing is for this person to say, I don't know a single sexual person who has a hierarchy to sex, then they must not know a lot of people.
Or I'm like, where do you live?
Or they're not being fully honest. I mean, I think they live in Canada. But
well, what part of Canada?
But the reason why is I
want to go live there.
Yeah. There's a subreddit called Dead Bedrooms, which has 425,000. Actually, I think it's like 466,000 people in it. And you will read post after post after post after post about somebody saying that my partner doesn't want to have sex with me anymore, or they are doing this or that, but they, sex is not happening, and so I
bedroom
can't
stuff.
take it anymore.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a hierarchy with sex being at a top of anything, then first off, asexuality wouldn't even matter. And second off, people wouldn't be writing about a lack of sex in their relationship and getting divorced over it and cheating on their partner because of it.
It also wouldn't be the topic of discussion almost in all sorts of ways amongst girlfriends talking about whatever. Everything points at there definitely being a hierarchy.
There wouldn't be articles of like 10 ways to spicing up your sex life with your husband in the Cosmopolitan magazine.
Oh gosh, Cosmopolitan, woo!
You wouldn't constantly see commercials for hymns and other, erectile dysfunction stuff. There wouldn't be...
Wait.
Just
Did you just say you wouldn't see commercials for hymns?
HIMS.
HIMS?
Yeah, it's erectile dysfunction, popular medicine right now.
I just thought you meant church hymns, and I was like, where are you going with this?
Nope, definitely not that. So the thing is whether you want to admit or not that there is a hierarchy, then just ask yourself, am I okay never having sex with my partner again? Would I accept it if my partner came to me for whatever reason, asexuality or not, just because they don't want to? Would you be okay never having sex again without any reason, without any explanation? And if the answer is no, then you have some hierarchy when it comes to sex.
Yeah. But couldn't you just say, I enjoy these forms of intimacy? So like you could have a hierarchy where you feel like hand holding is at the top, right?
I see, even though I say, for instance, and I have said on previous episodes that I don't have a hierarchy anymore to intimacy, what it means is I don't look at holding hands less than a hug, or I don't see a hug as less than kissing. But there still may be a hierarchy in the relationship as a whole when it comes to physical touch.
Physical touch is a top contender.
Because if
is that what you're saying?
Because there are people who are touch averse,
right?
And if Jesse came to me and said, I am touch averse, I don't want to hold hands with you, I don't want to hug you, I don't want to kiss you, I don't, we need to have a pillow between us or sleep in separate beds, I don't know what I would do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how I would get over that. And that doesn't mean, like, if she did come to me and said, I don't want to kiss anymore, I could get over that. Or if you said, I don't want to hold hands anymore, I could get over that, because there would be other things where I would focus and be like, okay, I understand, and I will focus on this. But I don't know if I could altogether on that. And so maybe there is some level of hierarchy when it comes to intimacy that I still hold on to in a sense, but...
So wait, do you feel like you could still have a romantic relationship if you don't want any kind of touch like that at all? Do you think that there can still be romance without that?
Yeah, because I think that what does it mean when someone goes on a romantic date?
So is it just more so a matter of compatibility and really understanding when you may just not be compatible with somebody.
I think that everybody probably has some level of where they say, I'm no longer compatible to be in a monogamous relationship with you, where it doesn't feel like a roommate. Because if there was no romance, and I can see some people who, are aromantic that want to have a queer platonic relationship, but normally those queer platonic relationships, I don't think are happening with someone who is really seeking out romance and physical touch and all those things as a base level necessity for the relationship.
Yeah, but people definitely believe in platonic, like cuddle puddles and stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But also, I want to pause there for a second and just say it's really interesting to me that it feels so upsetting to be called a roommate. Do you want to know why? I'm frustrated at that because you can have some really fucking cool roommates that mean the world to you.
Yeah.
I think the only difference in why it can be offensive is if you definitely don't define your relationship in that way, right? Like you definitely have an image of romance.
Yeah.
And so to be misidentified in that way can be frustrating. I would be honored to be someone's super cool fucking roommate.
But if all you and I had together was bills that we split or paid, but there was no romance, there was no cuddling, there was nothing else.
Would it be companionship?
But does that companionship, though, outweigh the necessity for having a more fitting relationship?
I don't know, because everyone gets to define what that looks like for them, right? They can have a companion that they do all of the house stuff with and spend lots of time with. And then they have other romantic relations if that's what they agree upon.
I mean, what would it look like to be a roommate to you? If I refuse to have physical touch with you and like cuddling, back tickles, any of that, because I said that I can't do it because it just is reminding me that we don't have sex, and so that's
the tables have turned.
So that's difficult for me to participate in.
Okay, so this is interesting for me because I am a very touch positive, in a non-sexual way, touch positive, romantic, asexual, and so I don't know what I would do. I would have a hard time with that. I wouldn't want to sleep in the same bed with you.
Yeah.
I would be your totally super cool fucking roommate.
So that's the thing, is that's being a roommate doesn't always have to have a negative connotation, but it certainly would not be a relationship like a relationship for us.
For us.
Yeah.
I think that's important to say that because everyone can literally define whatever their relationship is like.
Yeah, like we said, queer platonic relationships are great, and there are people that are looking for that companionship and looking at, someone to hang out with, someone to help with, financially on both sides, because obviously two salaries provide a lot more options for lots of things.
Yeah.
Including where you live and what entertainment you have and all that. So we're not trying to shit at all on those relationships, but you and I specifically for this discussion, we are not in a queer platonic relationship.
No, I feel like there would be incompatibility at that point, which is interesting for me to say because oh man, it makes me feel a little bit bad because I'm sitting here thinking, you have been so willing to be so curious and understanding and thoughtful in my asexuality with what I'm averse to and whatnot. And then you flip the table. So
if I had a boundary.
Well, if you had the boundaries that you just mentioned where you were touch averse completely, I don't know if I would feel like we're compatible.
Well, and it might not be touch averse in the sense of like I'm not touch averse with everybody, but it might be a boundary for my mental health, because if I'm doing all these stuff, it's causing me mental anguish because I know that sex will never happen.
Okay, wait. So let's flip that table again then and say, if it is that hard for you, you simply are not compatible with me.
Well, and that's where it would be a discussion together and be like, I can't do it because...
Are we just taking everyone on a mind F? Like,
I guess.
Sorry, everyone. We're just speaking out loud.
But I think it just comes down to everybody has a hierarchy, whether you want to admit it or not. And certainly allosexual people who are not sex averse, who are sex favorable, quote unquote sexual allosexuals, you're simply going to have a hierarchy, and you're going to say that sex is a pretty much a necessity to a relationship.
Yeah. Wow. And what do you think? This is a little bit of a sidetrack here, but it's interesting to think about the hierarchy amongst relationships, that we think that marriage, people that are married, are at the top and the highest, almost to the point where we obviously then put friendship below that. Yeah. And then we put single people, like, it's bad. It's honestly really bad, because every single one of those types of relationships or non-relationships are important and vital, honestly.
But also I think that there's people, especially the older generations, they believe that marriage is way better than just a committed relationship.
Say that again.
So, for instance, my sister, who is not married but has a partner, and she has a child and another child on the way with this, my mom would say to her, so you have kids, so does that mean you're getting married? And my sister's like, no. Why would we do that? Yeah. And my mom keeps having this thought like, oh, maybe they're going to get married now. And they have, to my knowledge, no plans on getting married. Yeah. And so, but people look at like a boyfriend, or when someone says my boyfriend or my girlfriend, it's automatically somehow looked at as less than a wife or husband.
It is, yeah. Or a husband and a husband.
Because it's like...
whatever the relationship looks like.
Well, we didn't establish who the person saying it was, so there was there wasn't any heteronormative... Right. But...
I think that's really, really annoying.
I think that people assume that just because there's more legalities involved when it comes to a marriage to separate, that it seems like it's somehow more committed, because it's not simply like, okay, bye, this isn't working out, see you later. That it's like, okay, this isn't working out, now we got to get lawyers involved, and now we got to split up all of our assets and all of this.
I honestly don't know why people get married.
Well, why did you marry me? I'm just kidding.
I couldn't help it.
So
it just had to happen.
So yeah, when I read this review, I was just like, who are they kidding? Because even in the asexual subreddit, there's people who are just saying, you're not compatible, you should break up. Like, my boyfriend or my girlfriend wants to have sex and I don't feel comfortable with it. And people are like, you're just not compatible, you need to break up. And they say that they're okay with it for a little bit, but then they don't realize what that meant. Or on the other hand, you have allosexual people on some of the other pages that I'm on that are making memes that are saying stuff like, I can't believe, like, he kissed me and did this, but he will not, like, I'm just begging, I'm just wanting him so badly to have sex with me and he won't. And I'm so frustrated and upset by that, and I feel so hurt by it, and this and that. If you truly didn't care about sex being at a higher form to than kissing and holding hands and all that, you wouldn't be so upset by sex not happening. It wouldn't be an issue.
So do you think it bothers people to admit that it is so important?
I think people don't want to come off as so shallow. Because sure, again, this isn't about not understanding intimacy. You can kiss, you can hug, you can cuddle every day, which Jesse and I did for the first 5 years. But there was still frustration when sex wasn't happening in the normal way that it was. And I say that because I always knew when her period was going to happen. I always knew like pretty much what to expect. If it wasn't happening at least once a week, then I knew around roughly once a month that it would happen.
Because of ovulation.
And so I knew that therefore if sex wasn't happening or if it had been 6 weeks, a month and a half, then I'd be like, oh, well, this isn't happening like it used to, like it should, because there's an expectation, if you will. There's a hierarchy. Even though we're doing all these other things, I'm still expecting sex to happen because that's what it is.
That's what you're
what
supposed to do. And then that would cue you enjoy it when we're doing it. I just why don't you think of it?
I don't understand why you're
I
not.
don't know. I promise I'll try harder. I don't know.
So
painful.
So to the person, if you're listening, to the person who
Wait. Little do we know they only listened to like 20 minutes of the first episode.
I don't think so, because we didn't talk about all that stuff in the first episode.
Yeah.
So
I suppose.
So if you're listening, I would love to have you. I don't even care if you create a fake Gmail account and your name is Bob Ross, whatever. I want you to, if you're willing to reach out and open up this conversation to let us know how you can leave this review in a serious way when there's just so much of the world proving otherwise, that there is a hierarchy. If there wasn't, we wouldn't get asked by every single person, what's Skylar going to do? How is he going to get his needs met? Are you guys going to get a divorce? Are you going to open your marriage?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be happening. People would be like, oh, I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
I live in a sexual world all around me that is heavily focused on sex. So I honestly cannot relate to this review. I just cannot see it.
So I think that's what we wanted to mainly discuss, was kind of clarify that we don't feel like, oh, I think I was going to say this, and it's funny because I can't even remember if I just talked about it 15 minutes ago. When it comes to the whole enlightened thing, we talked about this a little bit on the Insta Live. You don't know what you don't know until you know.
Yeah.
So you might think that your marriage is great. You might think that you know what it's like to be intimate. You might know what intimacy is to a certain level. But until you have someone tell you that one form of intimacy is possibly not going to happen, and that a lot of the other forms of intimacy are going to change because they're no longer stepping stones, that's when you have to evaluate the way that you looked at intimacy before. So it's not so much that it's being enlightened. It's more so that you never had to face it head on. You never had to actually evaluate intimacy until you have someone creating boundaries around it.
Yeah. Genuine, real boundaries that, yeah. Where they're actually listening to themselves.
Because one of the things that I read recently on the Dead Bedroom subreddit, it was actually a guy who was saying, my girlfriend or my wife, she talked to me about sex, and she said, well, once you show me more that I'm not your mom, essentially, like once you show me that you can do things around the house without me writing down everything that I need you to do, and once you show me that we can cuddle without there being an expectation of sex happening, then she would be more open to it. So already he's admitting that he has an issue, or at least in their marriage, there's an issue with cuddling not being a stepping stone to sex.
Yeah. And
that's always been an issue, I think, in probably, any major forms of cuddling that we did. I think there would be some form of like extra pressing or grinding or whatever.
You used to put my hand on you.
Yeah, which we talked about, but I'm even talking about like spooning in a,
someone purposely spooning to where things are definitely going to hit a certain thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can't cuddle without your partner saying, why can't you give me a massage without expectations of sex? Why can't you cuddle without there being an expectation of sex? Why can't you make out without there being an expectation of sex? Then you've never had to really evaluate intimacy in a way of not looking at them being as a stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
And there probably are some couples that are fully aware of intimacy before there's ever something brought up with asexuality. But I would say that the majority of people are probably dealing with there being some form of Disneyland parking lot or, something being a stepping stone and not just being good enough.
Yeah.
And so please reach out and
Please reach out. We love it. We love you.
Yeah. So that's what we wanted to discuss.
Yeah. And I know I keep saying this a lot, but we really do have some super cool ideas that are happening for the Allo and Ace shop. We have some friends coming into town to visit, and there's a collaboration that's happening with some really super cool sweatshirts that I'm just really excited about. So please keep a lookout. I'm not entirely sure when things are going live, but they will. And we're excited to make some cool items for folks if they want them.
And we do want to thank those who have donated via the Buy Me a Coffee.
Yeah, that's so nice. Thank you.
On the alloandace.com is where that can be found. And again, we're not expecting anything. We love doing this. We love learning. This is therapy to us as well.
It is. Thank you for joining us in our therapy sessions.
It's a way for me to check my own thoughts and check my own feelings on things and discuss them out loud and live. And there's no fakeness to me. There
isn't. No. This is us, guys.
We've said this. These are both second marriages. We know that there is one life to live, and we are not going to waste time being in something that we wouldn't want to be in wholeheartedly.
No, I choose you every single day.
And I choose you, Ralph.
Oh. Well, we're going to end this episode. We have some trashy TV to watch.
And some pickleball to play.
We do indeed. And we look forward to hearing from you and chatting next week.
Love you guys. Have a great one.
Love you. Bye.